swab you with a lot of mercury with
Methylated purifying. Yeah. But that would affect more of the left side, not the right side.
He said he thought it moved to the side when he examined it.
Yeah. Then I may have seen a trail.
Okay. So eventually it'll just come out.
It's a long time. We're talking about mercury causing the soreness, aching in his right shoulder. I've been getting injections. And to remove one molecule of mercury, it takes about 50 to 200 fat cells. And your mercury is a very tiny, tiny molecule. Not as small as sodium, but still it's very small. And you can figure 50 to 200 times the amount of molecules, fat molecules, to one mercury. For each vaccine, back in those days, there was 76 quadrillion molecules of mercury in each vaccine.
Wow.
So multiply that by 50 to 200, and how many molecules of fat? How many molecules can you digest and eat in a day? Only about 10 million. So you figure you've got a lifetime of getting rid of vaccines, depending upon the mercury in vaccines, depending upon how many shots you got. But you not only have to deal with the mercury in those vaccines, you have liquid aluminum, formaldehyde, ether, and detergent. And that's another 500-600 times toxic molecules that you do with mercury. So,
why did they put that in there?
Preservative?
Well, my theory is that when I studied at the Sorbonne Institute in Paris, all of Pasteur's animals died. When they started adding formaldehyde, that's the thing they added first, when Rockefeller got involved in it. They started adding formaldehyde. The formaldehyde created an instant poisoning that put the mercury on the back burner. So all of Pasteur, every injection that was given to an animal by Pasteur, every animal died. When they started putting formaldehyde and other toxins in it, then there were fewer deaths and still a lot of side effects. So what they discovered was putting a lot of different kinds of toxins in there would stop most reactions from being observable and visible. So now they put up to 63 toxins in a vaccine. The latest terrible assault is squalene in flu shots. And squalene causes massive death, kidney failure, and all kinds of complications in laboratory animals. So it's a ploy. But you have to understand that they're using maybe probably 60,000 so-called molecules of virus in a vaccine. So your body uses all kinds of bacteria and hydrochloric acid to neutralize that waste, that toxic solvent waste. Viruses are not alive, that's a fiction. 40 years ago, no MD ever gave an antibiotic for virus because there was no life form. All you see is dissolved cells in some kind of a solution, solvent solution. But the cell makes the solvent solution. When the cells are so toxic and the tissue is so toxic that bacteria, parasites, and fungus can't eat it, then cells have to make a solvent to dissolve that waste. It can't be recycled. So it is kind of a muriatic acid, different forms of it that the cells make to dissolve this dead tissue that can't be recycled with bacteria, fungus, and parasites. So viruses aren't alive to begin with. So let's say you have 60,000 to 100,000 molecules of so-called virus-related solution in a vaccine. That will fit on the head of a pinprick. So the idea that a virus is going to take over the body is an absurdity anyway. And putting that much on creating immunity is a farce. It's a joke. There's no science to prove it. There's just theory. And of course they can't prove it. That's why there's no science behind it. They can't prove that it works. All the new animations that you're seeing of virus, like balls with all these little tentacles coming off of it. I had a sci-fi book when I was 8 years old that had that very comical, it was a creature from another planet. And they are using that very image from that science fiction book. Every one of those images that they produce that say this is a virus are animated. They are generated in computer programs. They are not real. A real picture of a microscopic solution looks very different. That is animated, computer-generated those are images, computer-generated images. So what they do is, with the vaccines, they are the most toxic thing and create more disease than any other element on this planet unless you're directly exposed to mercury in a laboratory or you work in a nuclear plant and get exposed. Vaccines create more disease. In fact, 70% of all diseases created today are caused by vaccines.
Is antibiotics a vaccine too?
Some of them will put mercury in, not all.
Well, I read where in the military when they developed antibiotics, the people started living better after they got wounded.
That was the propaganda. It's propaganda. And they were selling it heavily. Well, look at the Spanish flu epidemic. They say it took 50 million people in 1918. That was Rockefeller's first flu shot. And only the people who got the flu shot died. Only the people who got the flu shot got the flu-related symptoms. Everybody gets the flu now because they get vaccines. Before it used to be colds. Colds are predominantly bacteria. Bacteria go in and eat the dead tissue, recycle what they can, and discard what they can. Parasites can do the same thing quicker and with less symptoms than bacteria. That's what we used to have. Colds all the time. Now we have all this virus because we're so contaminated with chemical food and only these vaccines. So everybody's not getting colds anymore. You can tell a cold when you have yellow mucus. Right? That's when you have a lot of bacteria involved in helping you clean. When it is clear, it is virus. If it is green, it's mostly fungus. If it's light green and mostly pale, whitish in color or translucent, it's virus. So almost everybody has viral detoxifications rather than bacterial, fungal, or parasitical nowadays. Because of so much industrial contamination in the body. That was a long answer, wasn't it?
That was good.
Oh, good. Okay. You have a question?
He was on TV.
Please?
I think they came up in the morning, and so my right hand is swollen, and sometimes my
Speak up, what?
All three feet.
tingling sensation in my fingers, and heat tingling sensation in my fingers.
Okay, she's saying that when she wakes in the morning, she feels her hands are swollen, and tingling sensations and discomfort and swelling.
And heat sensation.
Pardon?
Heat.
Heat. Oh, heat. And also she feels heat in that hand. Those are three different symptoms. Heat means that your body's trying to perspire and remove the toxins that are moving in the night. Swelling is always an indication of more blood and more lymphatic fluid getting into a toxic area where the body's trying to clean it. Swelling is good. Do not disturb swelling. If you disturb the swelling with ice packs or cold packs, what do? You restrict the amount of blood and lymphatic fluid into the area, so you reduce the nutrients going into the area, so you will scar it. That's why all of those athletes who put ice packs on wherever they're injured end up having heavy scarring, and they have to go for surgery to have all that scar tissue scraped. Well, that's a boon for the coach because, put ice on your back, it completely numbs it. You have pain because there's an injury there, and it needs to be dealt with. You're not supposed to be out on that field again unless you can wrap the knee somehow or body part somehow so it doesn't move out of place and doesn't cause more injury. So, swelling is important for detoxification and healing. The tingling means that some kind of toxin, usually some metallic toxin, whether it's mercury, aluminum, cadmium, lead, is moving through the nerves in the hand. Now, it can also be caused if you sleep on the hand and you restrict the amount of circulation into the nerves going to the hand, that can also create a tingling sensation. However, if you haven't slept on your hand or body part that's tingling, it means that you're moving metals through the nerves in that area. And you're causing bursts of electromagnetic energy. And that's what the sensation of tingling is. Bursts of sensation. So you may have a block with the metal, and then your body's sending higher electromagnetic impulses to get it to move. The way you can help resolve that is you put a hot water bottle, wherever that tingling spot is, where that swelling is, help the body perspire so it doesn't have to go into its own fever, and it will also allow the breakdown of any toxins, let's say, that are in the lymphatic system or in the neurological system, where everybody has had margarine and all kinds of hydrogenated oils. Almost all cereal, donuts, chips, fries, all of them are oiled in trans fatty acid, hydrogenated oils. That is plastic oil. The human body doesn't handle plastic well. So those molecules will dehydrate, harden, and clump. So you have clusters of plastic that cannot be dissolved at body temperature. So you have to get it up to 100, 105 to 110 degrees to get it to melt, to perspire it out of the body. So you don't have to have those high impulses. Another way you can handle that is tickle the area where you're tingling. And that will allow, you'll be generating more electrical pulses so the brain doesn't have to send them down in bolts. You'll be doing it by tickling. Creates an electromagnetic energy.
Would a dry brush have a similar effect, or is that too rough?
No, it's too rough. When people have used brushes to clean with, when I had electronic microscopes, I looked at many arms and hands and palms with using a scrub brush. You know how you have a bicycle accident and you have an abrasion? Well, you have those on the top layer of skin. But the top layer is after you remove the dead layer, 1.5 dead layers of flesh, of skin. Then under that's the new first layer, top layer. And it'll have abrasions on it. every person, even tough macho guys, used a brush, had abrasions on there, and little tiny minute scabs that you couldn't see except under a microscope. So a brush is not a good thing. It's better to take soak the body, get those cells very damp so they're not adhering to the new skin underneath, and take a silk or a cotton cloth, very gentle, after you soak, and just rub them off, and they will come off easily. But you have to dampen them first, wet them so they'll let go. And they let go so easily once they're dampened.
Would that also apply to itching? Do the same thing with itching?
Well, not necessarily, because some itching is dead cells with high contaminants in it. Let me give you an example. I had to do a run up. I put some water towers in my place in Philippines, and when I was going up into the jungle, I hit a patch of rattan, and they've got these long, very fine thorns that are half the size of a needle, you know, and I got about 5 of them back here. Now, you can see that my body's still breaking them down. I mean, I took a knife in there and cut them out and everything because it was very painful, and they were bleeding for quite a while. I had it also on my finger, and you can see the results of them there. But I did cut most of them out of there, so it healed faster. But these were very large because it was on the ground, and those are much longer. And I got about 5 or 6 of those thorns in there. So it's still thickening. Now, this will itch, and I'll go ahead and pick it off. But I'm picking off dead skin down to dead skin. I'm not picking down on the fresh skin. But it does itch. But I will scratch it, but I won't scratch it down to new skin.
Okay.
So you can't do it in an area.
It's like gentle stretch.
Yeah, it should be a gentle massage. You know, when you have that itch, if you just go like this over it, you'll see it'll calm. If you start scratching it, it makes it worse. It starts drying the tissue more, your skin. So it's better just to gently rub it. And you'll find, wow, that was easy, went away quickly. But of course, if you've got toxicity moving out of that area, you know, every few minutes, every 20, 30 minutes, you're going to have repeated itching. Just keep doing that. That just stimulates more circulation in the area. When you scratch it, you're breaking capillaries and all kinds of things in dry areas. So it causes more problems, more dryness in the area.
No more dry brush massages then, not regardless of the fire.
Dry brush is the worst thing. Because it tears. It's like taking a scab and ripping it off. And you should never remove a scab by picking it off. You should wet it with saliva. Now, usually I put lime juice on this, and lime surrounds foreign particles, so my body didn't use white blood cells. But for some reason, it wasn't helping with these rattan thorns. And I couldn't stop it from itching, I couldn't stop it from bleeding, until I started putting my saliva on it. And when I started putting my saliva on it, the symptoms turned in half. And then I'd stop using my saliva and use lime juice or something else, like pineapple, they'll break it down. It would cause more symptoms. So the bacteria in the saliva, remember we have more than 2 or 3 times what a dog or a cat has bacteria in our saliva. So remember, don't bite anything. So, and the saliva helps break it down. That's why your pets, your dogs and your cats, you have a wound and they'll lick it. They're putting their bacteria on there because the bacteria, that particular bacteria, is digestive bacteria. So it breaks down contaminants in the skin and under the skin. It digests them, breaks them down so you can move them out of the body. That's why when you get a wound, a dog, your pet will lick it, or even a stray will come and lick you. They're automatically thinking about helping you and healing you. You go around licking people to help them.
She will now.
No human animals. Okay, do you have a question?
Yes. Going more into headaches. If on rare occasions I have throbbing on one side of my head, I want to know, is that a migraine headache? Thank God it rarely occurs, but when it does, so what exactly is that?
Well, a migraine headache is an intense headache that doesn't necessarily grow, but so intense you can't function, even can cause you to vomit. Cluster headaches are those that increase every 10, 20 minutes. They get worse and worse, so you can't function either. In fact, they call them suicide headaches because it gets so intense and so overwhelming that people just want to commit suicide. Want to take a gun and blow the brains out. An average headache is one that causes you pain but doesn't cause you to vomit, and makes it difficult to sleep sometimes and function. That's a normal headache. Now, the brain doesn't have any nerves in it, so you can do open brain surgery and still talk to the patient, and they'll never feel you picking around and cutting around in the brain. The nerves are in the meningi, which is about 11 layers thick of the brain. So when you have swelling in the brain, your body puts the pressure on the meningi, those anywhere from 8 to 11 layers of brain skin, and that causes your headache. 85% of all headaches are caused by salt, causes swelling in the body. Sodium is an explosive when isolated. It is a toxin even if it's mixed with iodine, sodium iodine, or potassium. Still very toxic. When it's with iodine, which most table salt is, iodized salt, that is more dangerous because iodine is a poison. That's why they use it as an antiseptic. So the sodium will go and cause these explosions in the body. Then the iodine will kill the natural bacteria, which would break down the dead tissue and remove it from the body and stops the bacteria from doing that job. So you have all this heavy contamination in the blood and the lymphatic system and the neurological fluid because of the concentrated sodium that is isolated and not linked. When sodium occurs in a raw food, it is never an explosive. It will never cause a problem. But when you isolate it, cook it, the body isolates it. When it's in any kind of salt form, I don't care if it's, the Dead Sea salt. Salt is rock, and we don't eat it. Plants eat rock. Put rock salt, put the amount of salt that you eat on a plant and see what happens to it. Very few plants can live, like ground plants, can live in a salt soil. Out there in the ocean, plenty, but they're meant to live in salt fluids. The land creatures aren't. The land plants aren't. So you put salt in your body, it's like putting salt on a plant. You'll just burn the roots. Plant dies. Because it just explodes, blows up. If you want to really see how that works and proof about it, go online to any search engine and put YouTube or video, frog legs, salt. And you'll come up with a video where these three guys are entertainingly mocking me because I've said this about salt. And they salt dead frog legs. And all of a sudden, the more they salt them, the more they go into spasms. They spasm for 32 minutes. You only get to see 2.5 minutes of it. But they spasm for 32 minutes. These are dead frog legs, not attached, skinned, and not attached to the frog. Yet you put pepper, now pepper is very hot and abrasive, right? They put it on pepper, one twitch. That's it. Because salt is an explosive. Pepper is not. Pepper can be an irritant, but it's not an explosive. The only way you can get dead tissue to react is by putting an explosive on it, which sodium is, salt is. And even putting it, even though it was iodized salt that they put on the frog legs, the frog legs instantly separated the sodium from the iodine within seconds of touching the flesh of the frog legs. So a headache, that means that you've got high blood pressure in the brain and it's putting pressure on the meningi. And that's usually from salt. You can help get rid of salt contamination by drinking some sparkling mineral water, some lemon juice, and a little cream like I have in the book. And I have those headache formulas in We Want to Live. There are several of them. They almost always work except on some migraines and only reduce a little bit in cluster headaches. But they work pretty well. It's almost impossible to get rid of headaches because you've got to decontaminate the brain so it reduces swelling. Eating a lot of cheese helps. Pull the poisons into the intestines. Where the raw no salt cheese will collect it, hold on to it as long as you don't eat honey or fruit with the cheese, it will pass it out in the bowels. So you can reduce the load in the blood, the neurological fluid and lymph, so that the body is able to take more toxins out into those fluid systems and out of the brain. So it can even the cheese can reduce headaches tremendously, and the length of them. Cluster headaches can last 10 days, 10, 20 days.
Do you put the cream in the mineral water? Is that what you said?
Cream, honey, and lemon juice.
Cream.
Cream, honey, and lemon juice with the sparkling mineral water. It's in the We Want to Live under headaches. Hi, I met you before, haven't I?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, I saw your videos of that.
Pardon?
I saw your videos of that.
You met me, I didn't meet you. Okay.
About food combination.
Oh, you wait a minute. You're going to get a question when we come around.
Oh.
Oh, you can only ask other people can ask a question about a question somebody else to ask if it's about the same subject. Okay? All right. So those are two things. The headache formulas and the cheese will help you minimize or mitigate headache. Do you have a question?
I have a question about family history. Growing up in the Midwest with my family, we had cooked food most of my life. I just started seriously on this diet a year and a half ago. I've been dabbling in it before then, but my mother had very serious Alzheimer's and died at 81, and my dad had very serious dementia. So would I have a tendency toward that?
Not unless you did the same bad things that they did.
I changed my life.
Right. Dementia is usually caused by aluminum. Alzheimer's is usually caused by mercury. It was believed and still believed by some that Alzheimer's is caused in majority by aluminum, and I used to believe that too until Alberta University came out with that video that shows mercury in neurons. You can look it up, Alberta University, mercury neurons video. And it shows that the neurological damage, the neuronic damage done by mercury is identical, that occurs in people with Alzheimer's. Aluminum does not create those lesions because they tried it and tested it.
Do they give vaccines? Is that what they cause mercury? Mercury is there.
Mercury, a lot is from that. Also power plants that release mercury into the air by burning coal.
What about fish?
Pardon?
What about fish?
fish can add to it if you're cooking it. And now with the high contamination, you'd have to eat an awful lot of butter and cheese with the fish to prevent contamination. Because now the levels are so high. When I did those tests, it showed 92% of the mercury left the body from eating the high mercury swordfish. That was in 88. I did several of them from 88 to 92. This is, many years later. And the levels are much higher. They grow every year because we keep burning coal to produce energy for our homes and factories, and that has a lot of mercury in it. So we're spreading mercury all over.
So how much cheese and fat do we eat now?
Pardon?
To counter eating fish, what?
You're going to have to eat cheese and a lot of butter with it. Or even some coconut cream.
With the fish.
With the fish. Yes,
Okay.
with the fish.
Okay, so the cheese before the fish is something.
Cheese before the fish, and a little cheese during the
And
fish.
during the fish.
Grate a little bit with the fish.
Oh, okay. So, all right.
And no fish from the Pacific?
Confusing because Fukushima.
Well, we're talking about mercury right now.
Oh,
We're not talking about radioactive material. We're talking about Alzheimer's and dementia. Okay. And that goes along with mainly mercury. And aluminum for the dementia. And mercury for the Alzheimer's. Getting those out of the body, I have it in my one of my last 2 newsletters, the Lime formula in there. You can assume that'll help you remove those heavy metals. Eating the way I handle mine, I was subdued, kidnapped in that hotel room and given those 3 injections after I went internationally against the swine flu vaccines, H1N1. I mean, this past 2 months aching. It was like when I got all those shots when I was a child, aching right here, sore and hurts and down. So I've even had to change this arm to use the mouse on my computer sometimes. And what I do, and I started getting wrinkled skin all over the place, heavy wrinkles here, and now you can see it's almost going away again. And I had all this skin that was just sagging within about 4 months after those injections. And plus all the exploding tissue, this is the biggest area where it exploded there. But I had these all over my body, so I looked like I'd been, in a shrapnel explosion. And that just burst all over the place. But what I do to reduce those, now I have a couple on here that started on my face again and neck. And what I do to reduce those, they would get as big as this one here or even larger if I didn't have my formula. So what I do is I have a kind of a sport formula. But what I'll use is a cup of whey, about a pint of blueberries, about a cup of blueberries, not a pint, a cup of blueberries, and about 2 ounces of pineapple, 4 to 5 eggs. If they're small eggs, I'll use 5. If they're medium to large eggs, I'll use 4. And then I'll use 2 tablespoons of lime juice, 2 teaspoons of lemon juice, and 1 to 3 tablespoons of raw apple cider vinegar, and then fill the rest with milk to fill a quart. That's to help remove heavy metals and toxicity and contamination like the flu shots I was getting, forced.
What did you say after the outside?
Milk.
You gave a different vaccine formula before. There's another vaccine formula.
I'm telling you the one that I'm using now. I keep experimenting.
Is
And the
this
one
what
I'm
you want
finding
to-
works very well.
Do you want to change to this one now?
That's up to you. Both of them will work. I find this works a little bit better.
Oh, this is better.
Yeah, it works a little bit better. Okay,
For
so
vaccines? No.
Heavy metals.
for the soreness, for the
Oh, not
toxins
for
coming out the
vaccines.
skin.
For vaccines is what I'm trying to
Vaccine toxicity that's stored in my arm.
But how about anybody that had vaccines?
Yeah, it'll help that, absolutely. But you don't have to wait till you have pain like I did. You know, you can handle it without pain. But I waited until I had symptoms. Until it was coming out my skin and in pain in the arm. So that I was away in Asia and I couldn't get the raw apple cider vinegar. Now raw apple cider vinegar carries those particular amino acids they use in chelation therapy. So why do they put these false amino acids that they get and process to the hilt with either hexane, which is gasoline, or kerosene, to make these amino acids, and then put this chemical in your body, and most of it doesn't come out of the body, it stays in the body, so you have more contamination, even though you may have removed some loose metals like mercury or cadmium or lead with that chelation therapy. If you use the raw apple cider vinegar, it's got 3 of those 4 particular amino acids. The lime juice has the other. So the combination takes care of it without putting frickin' poisons in your body. But they don't make money if you're just going to your food cabinet and getting the food. They want to put this chemical in you, even though it's these alternative doctors, and say, oh, we'll help you get rid of those metals. But the contamination that they create at the same time is astronomical. So you feel better for the first few years, then after that you may go downhill fast. Or slowly, one or the other. But you're going to go downhill. Unless you're from Krypton.
On the vaccine formula, did you say honey in it?
Yeah, about 1-2 tablespoons of honey. I don't like too much honey in mine because I'll drink it too fast. Too delicious.
It's another one, he said.
This is another.
But I mean, you don't use raspberries, and you miss raspberries.
Sometimes I'll put raspberries in it, but most often I'm after mercury and I'm after the other heavy metals that go in vaccines. And blueberries, blackberries, and boysenberries are better for that. Dark berries. If I'm going after iodine and iron, I'll use the more of the raspberry.
I better just use up what I bought because I learned the other vaccine formula. That's what I should do.
That's fine. So, your question was about genetics and if you will have the same kind of problems as your parents did with Alzheimer's and dementia. If you continue to contaminate your brain, you're going to have those. And you will have glimpses of them when you detox. Just remember, your disease is your detoxification. Your disease isn't your problem, it's the cure. What you have to do is aid the body detoxify. You have to assist the detoxification process that's created, that manifests all of your symptoms. It's the contaminants that are causing the problems, not your body attacking itself. The most ludicrous thing in the world is believing that your body's attacking itself. Yeah, it's absolutely absurd. There's no such thing as an elusive autoimmune system. The doctors use that to completely scare you, and the pharmaceutical houses who do that to scare the doctors to scare you. So the doctors are as stupid as, as a penny. And, they don't know any better. They accept this mythological fairy tale nonsense or horror B-class movies from Hollywood, the pits of Hollywood, as truth. And it's ridiculous. You have a lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is responsible for removing all waste in the body. The bacteria in the body is responsible for breaking down dead cells digestion, and everything. The body is 99.99% bacteria. You have, 260 or 360 bacterial genes to every one human gene. You aren't even barely 1% human. So the whole idea of destroying bacteria is absolutely absurd and ludicrous. The bacteria will break down dead cells, recycle what it can, redigest it, pull what it can back into the system, send its waste to the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system absorbs it. If you're lacking all this bacteria because of vaccines and antibiotics, the lymph system then has to take the dead cells, make a solvent to dissolve them, and discard the waste. And all of it will be waste. It can't recycle any of it. The lymphatic system cannot recycle any waste. Only bacteria, parasites, and fungus can. But mainly bacteria. So if you eat a good diet, you take care of yourself, you're going to go through dementia and Alzheimer's. Everybody needs. Bits of it as they detoxify the brain. So if you're going to stay in that state, that's because you're eating a bad diet. Kathy, you have a question?
When you said yesterday you scraped the cheese, and then also after I scrape, let's see, I have a 5-pound cheese block. I'm not going to put it back in on with the plastic. I have to cut it up and put it all in glass jars.
Well, what I do is I'll leave it in the plastic, and then I'll take a cut off at a time, and I scrape all the areas that have touched plastic. Okay, the 5 sides. There will always be 6 sides to a cut. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the one where I cut off, I don't scrape that because I didn't touch plastic, but I scrape all the other sides.
You could take off half of it and you put it in glass.
No, I don't take half of it. You can do that, but my refrigerator isn't big enough. So I just cut a section off about this big, and I'll scrape that and put that in a jar. Or I put it on a plate if I want a lot of fungus to grow on it. I'll put it on a plate with a bowl over the top and let it sit out. And it melts until I finish it. And it gets a lot of white molds on it. They're pre-digested. So there's things you can do. There are different things you can do.
I thought I remember hearing you saying not to scrape off the white mold that you see on
If it's the fuzz on it, you can scrape off. You may go into a heavy mold detoxification. That's up to you whether you can handle it or not.
Oh, so you can eat it.
You can, yes. I eat it now because, I'm going to give it
So it will help with detox then. Eat it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But sometimes it can be very debilitating.
It's a strong detox. That's the thing. You have to be ready for it or know you're going to go
just
through
a little
it.
bit.
No, a little bit's not going to cause
Yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. A little bit that's on there. So it'll just help a little bit of detox. Oh, okay.
So whatever you cut
But if you're already heavily in a detox, you don't even want to eat a little bit.
If I already what?
Or heavily in a detoxification.
Oh, yeah.
You already have symptoms, don't have
Okay.
that to
I
add to
see.
it.
I see.
So that thing.
Pardon?
Either put it on a plate or in a glass jar.
In a jar, yeah. Okay, Roger, hate to wake you. Do you have a question, Roger?
Is it all right to eat the mold on the cheese?
Yes. Just talking about that. It is fine as long as you're not already in a detoxification. If you're in a detoxification, you don't want to add to it.
He gets another question.
Pardon?
Okay.
Do you have a question?
Good.
What?
Can you come back?
Yes. No, I won't come back. Do you have a question?
Eating embryonic chicken eggs. These are not fertile eggs. These are
Embryonic?
Yeah, they're going to hatch.
What do you find out?
Fertile eggs. Fertile.
No,
Fertile.
fertile egg means that the fertile egg might be fertile because they had one roosted for 1,000 hens. But if you go to Trader Joe's, for example, get fertile
1,000 supposed to be 60.
Oh, okay.
1 per 60.
No. But I'm saying eggs that are going to hatch, they have not been refrigerated. They've been candled. The light goes through, you know they're going to hatch. So,
Right.
and this friend of mine is wants to order these embryonic chicken eggs at 8 days, 8 to 9 days, and there's something special in there that's been commercially extracted and put it into make this stuff called melamine. So he says forget commercial melamine. What if you get the egg? It's going to become a chicken. Keep it at hen body temperature for 8 to 9 days, and then, okay, so I guess you can eat. Have you ever eaten any of those? Is my question. And then
In China, I've eaten bunches of them.
Okay.
Yes.
And if you refrigerate them, that's going to stop the development of an embryonic chick, but you're going to lose some of the value.
Right, but sometimes I've eaten them a little older, and they're already, cartilage and bone forming.
Wow.
And it's not crunchy. It's more like a rubber. Yeah, like a rubber. They eat a lot of those in Asia.
Yeah,
A lot of them.
Cellophane, I heard.
But they usually let them go a little older, where you open it and they're already developing feathers.
Oh my God.
What's the benefit of it?
It's supposed
Was bacteria rich?
It's supposed to get the body to generate stem cells.
Yeah, stem cells.
Yeah.
The stem cells.
But it doesn't matter.
I've heard this.
It's more interesting.
That's a theory, and it hasn't been proven.
Yeah. Culinary wise.
An egg, when it's developing, unless you have a very excellent digestive tract and you've eaten raw foods, the primal diet type raw foods for 20 years, you're not going to digest most of that. Unless you know how to generate a lot of hydrochloric, or you blend it into a solution. Then you will get it. But in an egg, you have every nutrient on this planet in an egg. So you can let it start developing, but once the sinew starts developing, tendons start developing, you are just not going to digest it as well, unless you've been on the diet a long time.
Are there other ways to generate stem cells?
Well, you can eat bone marrow, or you can eat sperm, but you have to find a healthy person, a healthy animal. You eat the testes.
Okay.
Eat the testes. There's bone marrow and there's eggs.
Bone marrow's great. It's very easy.
What about regular raw eggs?
Pardon?
What about standard raw eggs?
Well, you got mostly, they're fed. If they're vegetarian, which chickens are not vegetarians, they're scavengers. They mainly eat rotten meat and bugs. Well, if they eat rotten meat, they don't eat bugs. Yeah, they prefer the rotten meat. They go around and eat like vultures. They eat dead carcasses. That's their main diet. That's why I have the Amish farmers butchering their animals and leave all the waste they put all the stuff they're not going to use, guts and stuff like that, and bones, I tell them, crushing it, even on the pallet. So the chickens will go in there, eat it as it rots, the rotten meat, and also the flies will leave their larvae and they'll eat the maggots. And these chickens, you see chickens, they go around, they're pecking each other, and they're all scurrying around because they're freaking starving. That's not their diet. And you see these Amish farmer chickens that feed them the way I tell them to. These chickens will walk around like cats and they'll rub you on the leg. They never peck each other. They're not. There's no, pecking order. There's none of that. These are calm, happy chickens.
They stopped with that arsenic because they were using arsenic in their feed before.
They weren't using arsenic. They were using fish meal.
Fish meal, yeah.
So if you have to
That
go to the
arsenic
store
in it.
and buy eggs.
Pardon?
If you have to go to the store and buy eggs.
Buy those from New Zealand.
New New Zealand eggs. So none of the other kinds, like that say all these other things on a vegetarian bed, all that's all.
That's terrible. Feeding a chicken a vegetarian diet is the worst thing you can do.
The only thing is that they're from Whole Foods, and you said don't buy from Whole Foods.
Yeah, you can only get it from Whole Foods.
Well, if you go get New Zealand, no matter where it is, if Whole Foods is carrying New Zealand, those are the ones to get. But the only way you're going to get very excellent eggs is from the Amish farmers, either utterlyla.com or rawhealthyfoods.com.
I've been getting these eggs. These are supposed to be sprout fed. The Lily's eggs.
Well, that's
sprout fed's not that great.
That's not that great.
That's again vegetarian.
It is.
And you have to understand that animals who live on sprouts die young.
They die young.
Yeah.
Oh, because Marilyn was thinking of using sprouting.
Well, the Amish will feed them sprouts. Listen to me. The Amish will feed them sprouts, but germinated in whey or early fermenting milk. And when you generate the animal product gets into the sprout, of course the sprout won't live and grow into a healthy vegetable. It'll break down and die. But they feed it while it's still in its sprouting, form. And the chickens do very well with that. But they're germinating in milk. And he feeds it, my Amish farmers feed that to the pigs too. It's wonderful.
What about the sprout was like full of a lot of milk? Right?
Yeah, it absorbs all the nutrients in the milk, all the freed, minerals. In fact, the sprout doesn't have to break them down like it does rocks. Plants, the rains help break down the rock. The plants will put out juices into the soil to help break down the rock, to free up and make very finite particles of minerals that can be used inside cells, in their cellulose. So when they have the milk, it's easy. They're not having to break down rock because the minerals are already there, already in the proper form. So the chickens do okay with those sprouts. But when the sprouts are grown on water and chemicals, then you've got a toxic condition.
How about if we sprout them or milk?
Pardon?
If we sprout, like after we feed milk, beneficial? Yeah.
Well, that still isn't good for us. The chicken has a gizzard. We don't have a gizzard.
So that's how we break it down.
So either Maryland's eggs or the eggs from New Zealand are good?
Well, Maryland gets hers from the Amish.
Okay.
She's not selling her eggs because that's just experimental.
Yeah.
She has about 25 is what
I know, but you just have to take them out of the refrigerator and let them warm and have them as they warm. Pardon?
I wasn't listening. Can you repeat that?
No. I said that if eggs are refrigerated, you need to take them out of the refrigerator and warm them.
With what do you just put in a bowl?
No, you put them in a brown paper bag and put it in the sun.
Oh, seriously warm, not just let it get to room temperature.
No, they need to get seriously warm to get that bacteria growing and moving.
Seriously? That warm?
An umbrella because you said about the air. Under an umbrella?
No, because you get direct X-rays in there, and that causes a breakdown of the stem cells.
What is it?
They're in eggs.
The umbrella has X-ray? What?
The light will still bounce off from the sun to different areas and penetrate the egg shell. So you put it in a paper bag so it doesn't get into the...
But I mean, the paper bag can be on a table under the umbrella.
Sure, yeah, but better that the sun beats on the bag.
That's just from New Zealand, not Maryland's egg.
No, well, I don't know. From what I just heard, the eggs are coming in refrigerated. So, I've been putting mine in the sun.
That's right. They come in refrigerated. So how long do you leave them in the sun?
All of them.
Yeah, how, like overnight?
Mostly I used to tell them to put in, you know, in the styrofoam containers, the eggs, and keep the warmth in and the cold out.
So what we should do is take a dozen in the box and just put it in a brown bag.
Or you could keep them in the box and put the box in the sun.
Oh, okay.
For like a day? Or
How long?
like,
Well, you want to bring it in at night. I would say 2 days.
2 days?
I never knew that before.
Don't you risk it getting going rotten? I've had
You like that?
Rotten eggs are good.
rotten eggs are good.
Yeah, like rotten meat. It's good. It's pre-digested, like yogurt.
So if it's like yellow and watery, I've broken eggs before and it comes out like that. Is that basically?
That's just barely fermented.
Yeah.
When they're black, that's really fermented. That's the way the Chinese eat.
Won't that stimulate like an intense detoxification if you do that?
No, that just feeds the brain and nervous system.
So why don't you eat entirely rotten eggs, or do you?
I've got a dozen. I've got 2 dozen in my cupboard.
How do you get it
Just because I never read that in your book, so you weren't doing it at the time.
My newsletters. I've got 1,500 pages in my newsletters.
Okay.
I decided not to do any more books. It's too expensive to print, put them in storage. Right now, my publisher is losing money on my books because he has to pay storage, insurance, and all of that. So I'm not going to do any more books. I'm going to do newsletters, and you go to the newsletters and you get all the topics and everything is going to be in the books, the detoxification books, everything. It's in the newsletter.
So if you want to make a high egg, would you just poke a hole in it and put it outside?
No, you don't want to poke a hole in it because then you'll have all kinds of maggots in there, tiny flies.
That's extra protein.
Yeah,
That's good.
but it digests differently. It won't necessarily feed the brain and nervous system. It will feed the glands a little bit better with the maggots in it. What I do is I'll take an egg when I really want it to rot really well, pre-digest very well. I'll take a metal spoon, the rounded side, and I will take it and tap it till I hear faint cracks. Turn it around, and I'll keep doing it until I hear faint cracks all the way around it. Then the oxygen isn't really breaking in, but more light's passing in, but not enough to cause it to harden, but enough to cause it to start turning black with bacteria.
Don't you care about taste at all?
Well, it's funny. The taste of a rotten egg tastes like a hard-boiled egg, overly salted hard-boiled egg. You have to put blinders on because that's the thing that looks ugly.
The smell is gross.
Well, yeah, it's not too good. So,
Not good at all.
You don't leave it in your house.
Put a swimmer's nose clip on.
It's okay to eat though just regular eggs that aren't rotten, right? I mean,
If you have depression, then eat rotten meat.
if you don't have depression, you said?
If you have depression, something you should eat. Or if your mind isn't clear and you're not thinking well, rotten eggs and rotten meat is the thing you should be eating.
Okay, but if you don't have depression, then
And you don't have mental focus problems, and you don't need it.
okay.
Then you're perfect.
How long does it take to get the egg to that point?
It depends upon the weather.
Okay.
The summer, you
Summer.
like that in 10 days.
In the summer it's better.
Yeah, in the winter you have to leave them indoors in the heat, and that could take 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's true.
So you won't want to leave it in the house because it's going to smell, right?
And it isn't like high heat.
Okay.
Unless you really crack a hole in the egg, then of course the odor's going to reach out. I mean, I've had eggs that stunk pretty badly, but they only stunk for about 6 inches away. And those were very rotten. Pardon?
In the shell before you...
In the shell, yeah. But I won't open one of those in the house. I take them outside, to eat them because I don't want to stink my house.
Well, we get about 20 days.
2 days. And you have to bring them in at night. And you put them out after the sun is warm enough.
What temperature is it that you kind of want it in the sun?
Pardon?
What temperature do you want them at when you're putting them out there in the sun?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter? Because like if it's cloudy, what would you do?
Then you're going to probably have to leave it out for 3 or 4 days if it's cloudy.
So if it's kind of warm, 75 degrees, then maybe...
Fine. Well, no, if it's still cloudy and not enough light, then it's still not going to decay as well. If it's 80 degrees and above, 82 degrees and above, then it can be cloudy. Not an issue.
So you want them above 80, essentially, is the temperature you want.
Above 80.
Yeah. Okay.
Not 70, because it's just like
70 is not going to produce too much bacteria quickly.
So our eggs then you can't do it, especially in the winter, because of that.
Well, what temperature do you leave your house? What temperature is your house? 78 degrees?
78.
68? Everybody should be having a hot house. Should be warm. It should be around 79 degrees, 80 degrees.
How do you sleep?
Yes.
For the bacteria.
Well, not only for that, you've got to perspire these poisons out of the body. And especially if you're not taking hot baths every day. Taking hot baths, you're going to slow it down with a colder house. But if you have a warm house and you're taking a hot bath, you're going to get healthier much quicker.
So we should leave our heater on?
Yeah, but I use one of those insulated radiator heaters where it's got the fluid inside, so it isn't like a filament, like those orange filaments that dry the air so badly.
Where do you get that one?
I got it online.
We get that Sears.
What about exercise?
Let's wait.
That's a different question.
Go around to the question. That's a different subject.
Well, I was just talking about sweating. I mean, you're just talking about sweating, so...
Yeah, but that's really, we're talking about we're talking about heat right now.
Okay.
Temperature and sunlight.
Okay.
Does it make it no worse when you eat rotten stuff?
No, it does not. No, the body has certain bacteria that neutralize the odors.
So you're making rotten meat, is that in one of your books? I know it's
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have a question?
Actually, 2 weeks, and they're related, food combination. So to get, grass-fed beef liver or chicken liver, it would be okay, one of the ways to eat it, would be to liquefy it, chop it really fine, and put it, say, in an 8-ounce or 16-ounce juice made of celery, carrot.
You put meat in the celery juice?
No.
Liver. You're saying liver.
Because to me...
Well, liver is meat.
I know it is. So, okay, so I make the juice based of celery, kale, garlic, ginger, and lime. Okay? And then I get about 8 or 12 ounces of beef liver, chop it finely, maybe put a little bit of onion chopped very finely, put it all together, blend it, and it comes out delicious.
If you like vegetables.
Well, the thing is,
but
my question is the alkalizing effects of the...
That is the issue. If your meat's acid and you need acid bacteria and acid digestive juices, what happens when you put alkaline juices with the meat that needs acid?
Well, yeah.
They're going to neutralize each other.
True. But
so you're not going to digest much of it thoroughly.
Well, that's the reason I choose that combination. If I chose something like a carrot or something, that would be wrong. But celery is a lot of water.
A lot of what?
Water.
It's still alkaline, highly alkaline. You're not going to digest but maybe 60% of the meat and less than that of the vegetable juice. Like I said in my books, never combine them. If you're going to have vegetables with your meats, it should never be anything other than an herb no more than 2 tablespoons with an entire meat meal.
You know, on the recipe book, I give, maybe I missed it.
Yeah, but I know I blend it with milk, not with vegetable juice. Yeah, with milk. They're both acidic. They both require acidic bacteria to digest them. Yeah, you're just defeating, you're not going to feed your brain and nervous system very well.
So what they should do is have 2 separate meals.
Just have your juice for
Right, yeah.
Hours and have the meat meal.
Correct.
or 20 minutes, you would say, between, at one point, well, half hour between, like if you have a vegetable juice first.
You have to wait at least an hour, unless it's the first in the morning.
Yeah,
You
that's
can wait 45 minutes to have the meat after vegetable.
45 minutes.
But after meat, you've got to wait at least an hour to 2 hours.
No, I meant the vegetable first. If you eat the vegetable first, then you're saying wait at least 45 minutes.
If you're hungry, and yeah.
And I eat the vegetable juice with egg in it. So do I have to wait longer or no?
No.
Okay. That made it tolerable for me to drink the vegetable juice. I couldn't eat it without the egg. That's why
It's just too alkaline.
it was too much for my system. Okay.
What about liver and onion?
Liver and onion are good together.
It's a small.
Gorillas eat a lot of onion to help them digest all kinds of food, because they'll chew on leaves and spit out the pulp, so they eat a lot of vegetable juice. But they eat onions, especially when they eat meat. A lot of people don't know that gorillas eat meat. Like a period, like menstruation, every 28 days, gorillas will eat a whole antelope. They'll eat up to 13 pounds in 24 hours of meat. But they only do it once a month. And they're the calmest, but they don't have the other problem. They don't get irritable.
You don't have too much onions with it. Maybe less than a cup of onions with the liver.
Oh, well, how much liver are you going to make with? I mean, you only need a little bit of onion, unless you want diarrhea. Some people want, like, one time I intentionally developed a tapeworm. And, I had had constipation my whole life for 58 years. And I mixed this formula that I thought would give me a tapeworm, and it did. And I was in Vietnam about several weeks later, and when I noticed I had the tapeworm, little noodles, flat noodles, moving around in the toilet. And one long tapeworm isn't one tapeworm. Each tapeworm, they have a colony, and they link together. So it's hundreds or even 1,000 tapeworms, tape noodles linked together to make a tapeworm. But they're each individual. They're not one worm. And I got this craving for onion. So I went across the street from my hotel to this outdoor market and got an onion. And I was eating it like I just had a craving for onion. And so I ate half of it just like an apple. It was delicious. And then after that last bite, half of it, I just couldn't eat any more. It was repulsive. I couldn't handle it. And within about 6 hours, I had diarrhea, and I lost 45 foot of that tapeworm. And I was furious because I worked so hard to get the tapeworm, to take care of my constipation problem. Because I only moved it about once every 5 days, as a child and an adolescent. Then when I went into a raw diet, the first part of that fecal matter was as hard, as big as my fist and like granite. And then the rest would be smooth, and I could go every day almost. Unless I only ate liquid foods. Then I wouldn't go every day, sometimes once every 5 days. There's not much to discard. So onion will help you rid of a lot of friendly things in your intestinal environment. So I'd say, keep light with the onion. Don't have it too heavy.
Why did you have the first part of your bowel movement rock hard and the rest was smooth? How did that happen?
It happens in a lot of people who, you have to understand, when we eat the fat that we eat, the raw fat, the intestinal tract and organs will absorb almost all of it. So when the food gets down to the bowel, where the bacteria breaks down those proteins and fat molecules down to a finite size to feed the brain and nervous system, there's not much fat left in that food. So the body will hang on to it and keep trying to draw all the fat out of it. It's very hard and brittle, it's like granite, passing granite. And I bled every time I had a bowel movement up until I had that tapeworm. And then after that tapeworm, I've only had maybe since I was 58, and I'll be 66 in less than a month and a half. And I've had bleeding maybe in just a spot, just a little bit, that's torn my rectum when I've had large movements, that 8 times. And it used to be every time I had a bowel movement. And by the time I was 21 years old, I had an inch of scar tissue all around my rectum. My rectum was scar tissue. And have a bowel movement, absolute tear, absolute bleeding.
Every time. Recommended the tapeworm in order to take care of that?
Well, I figured it out. The tapeworm helps the intestinal environment. It will go and eat up dead cells in the colon, like the scar tissue. Sure enough, it did it.
It doesn't also eat a lot of the nutrients that you're trying to get?
No, it eats in third world children and people who get the tapeworm. They're being fed cereals. And it feeds on high carbohydrate stuff in the intestine. So it saves the people from getting too much carbohydrate. So it's actually addressing the pharmaceutical wants you to, and medical profession wants you to attack anything that will make you healthy. They do not make money unless you're unhealthy and have symptoms.
Does anybody know that in Africa, Bill Gates gave these African children vaccine and they came down with paralyzed. They're paralyzed.
Kidney and bear disease. Well, the U.S. government and the British government gave Africa 125 million doses of smallpox vaccine contaminated with AIDS poisons. And that's why they got AIDS in those countries.
But how did they get it over here, like Rock Hudson and...
They put it in the hepatitis B vaccine.
He took a shot at
hepatitis B vaccine.
He had a hepatitis B vaccine.
He had a hepatitis B shot. It was created in 1961 and 62 at UCLA. And
why would he take a hepatitis? Oh, because he had hepatitis?
Well, you want to listen to me or you want to think about it? You're thinking correctly. You're thinking correctly. It was created at UCLA in the early 60s. It was given immediately to the War Department. The War Department figured they had to, they were doing a lot of germ warfare experiments. So they had to find undesirables to experiment on, with, and they decided homosexuals were the ones they wanted to experiment and on whom they wanted to experiment. So they looked at the health conditions in the major cities, which were New York, Houston, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. And they found that the homosexuals, 90% of the people who were getting hepatitis were homosexuals with amyl nitrate and all the drugs they were using, and partying a lot, sometimes 5-6 days a week, even 7 days a week. These people were coming down with hepatitis because they were destroying their livers. Hepatitis is a cleansing. It's a viral cleansing, meaning that your cells of the liver are creating solvents to dissolve damaged liver tissue and then eliminate. So viruses are good things, but they're not alive. But they wanted to say we've got a remedy for hepatitis, we've got this vaccine, hepatitis B vaccine and A vaccine. Absolute just bullshit. But these homosexuals were going for it. So 90% of the people who had hepatitis B in those cities where they were delivered that vaccine specifically by the NSA, the War Department, into those major cities, 90% of the people who got AIDS were the people who got the vaccine were homosexual. 10% were heterosexual who got the hepatitis B vaccine that was contaminated with AIDS. So 10% got it. But the real story, if you want to look at contagions and the real bullshit that's going on, is that there are 232 people as of 1996 who were couples. 236, 234, 236 couples. One of the partners was diagnosed with AIDS. They used contraceptives for the first few years. They stopped using them. After 14 years of having sex with a partner with AIDS, the other partner never got AIDS. Not one of them. The only way you can get AIDS is by injection with something that has that kind of contamination in it, or you get a blood transfusion from somebody who has it in their blood. Only way you can get it. Just like the only way you can get swine flu is to get the swine flu vaccine. The only way you can get avian flu is to get the avian flu vaccine. You're not a pig. You're not a bird. You cannot get those vaccines, those viruses. Those viruses are specific for those animals. It could be possible if you have birds that are highly contaminated and throwing off dead cells and you're inhaling them, you'll get a virus that is similar to a bird's or a pig's. If a pig is sloughing off a lot of dead cells and you're inhaling, but it will still never be a pig's virus. It will be a man's, a human's made to digest and break down the pig cells in the human body. Still won't be the same as the swine.
Wilhelm Reich is not an STD, is what you're saying.
Oh,
AIDS is not sexually transmitted?
No, AIDS is not sexually transmitted.
Wilhelm injected himself with it on camera. I saw him on forbidden TV. Shot right his arm on television.
Yeah.
And it didn't do anything. He says there's no such thing as AIDS. It's just a category of diseases that already exist. And if you die from pneumonia and you're HIV positive, then it's AIDS. If you're HIV negative, you're not. If you go to Canada, they don't have nearly as much HIV because they rate it differently. There's really no such thing as HIV. It's a category of the diseases that already exist.
AIDS, there is an AIDS. There's specific symptoms that are created by the toxins when they're put into a vaccine, like the smallpox vaccine in Africa. There are certain symptoms that break down. Basically what it does is it damages the body's ability to digest and utilize fats. The lymphatic system, that's why they say immune system. It damages the immune system. There's no such thing as a fucking immune system. You've got a cleansing system called the lymphatic system. If you break that down, the body can't cleanse itself. So the contaminants that they used and created in the experiments at UCLA and the tests that were done said we're creating cancer laboratory animals to study cancer. Well, if that's what they did, then why did they give it to the War Department to use as bacterial warfare? It was a smoke screen in front for the use of it. And Dr. Strecker uncovered all of that, and his brother, attorney, I forgot what his first name was. And anyway, in the biography in We Want to Live, it says Bioattack Alert. That is the documentation that was gotten from the War Department with the Freedom of Information Act, with the help of a senator, either from Wisconsin or Minnesota, that helped him. Both were dead within 3 months of the publication of that book. And nobody would publish it. He had to self-publish. Bioattack alert. You want the facts on it. Pardon? Yeah, the man who discovered the doctor, he has like 4 or 5 doctorates, biochemistry and urology and stuff like that. Dr. Strecker. He's the one that found it, but he isn't the one that wrote the book on it. But he sells it. They didn't kill him.
Oh, they didn't kill him.
They killed his brother, the attorney who wrote the book, and the senator who helped him with the Freedom of Information Act to get all that information from the War Department.
The author's name again?
Strecker.
The brother of Dr. Strecker.
It's in my book. It's in the biography, bibliography. Bioattack. Okay. Michael, question?
So how do you increase hydrochloric acid?
You mean a low hydrochloric acid problem?
Yes.
Like I said in the book, either beet juice or corn, but it can't be genetically modified corn.
You can't get regular
It has to
corn
be
now.
pure heritage, corn and beets. It has to be organic beets too. And what you do is have like 2 ounces of beet juice a day, or a whole ear of corn a day, and that will increase it pretty rapidly.
The whole corn is not available now, is it? I mean, we can't.
Well, I just saw it at TC Rain. Probably the endless. Well, they might bring some up from Mexico and Chile. Here in California we have that. As long as it's organic.
Yeah.
CC grain is down.
If you're drinking that much beet juice, is it going to look like you're having bloody bowel movement?
Have what?
No, it'll look like urine.
Yeah.
Your urine will turn red.
Oh, you're okay.
Yeah, it'll look like you're losing blood in it, but you're not.
Yeah,
Just put the beets in the
Do you mix it with other vegetables?
With 2 ounces, you're not going to turn your fecal matter red, but you will turn your urine a little red.
Can you mix that with grape juice, the beet juice?
Yeah, that's fine. It won't work quite as well, but it'll still work.
How can you take it? And can you mix it with other
Well, if you have if your stomach isn't making hydrochloric acid, intestines aren't forming hydrochloric acid, you may have to take it every day or at least every other day for up to 6 years. You've got a severe hydrochloric acid problem. But the only people I've seen that with that need to take it that frequently is people in their 80s and 90s who completely stopped manufacturing hydrochloric acid.
And you can mix it with other juice, right?
Like I said, it won't work quite as well, but it will still work.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Okay, great.
I prefer that you have the beet juice first, wait about 5 minutes, and sip the rest of your juice.
You take it with cream?
The other juice. Pardon?
You take it with cream or by itself?
No, that one by itself.
Okay.
So, Aajonus, what validity is there to the people who have a negative A blood type that have been diagnosed with low hydrochloric acid? Do you believe in any of that?
No, I don't. That is a random culling of people, but you have just as many people in all the other blood types who have the same condition.
Okay, thank you.
The pharmaceutical industry and the medical and even alternatives always trying to find some measurement to say you need this.
Well, or you don't need that. That was that doctor that wrote that book about the blood type.
Yeah, Diodamo.
Thank you.
And let me tell you, every A that came to me from his diet had anemia. One had leukemia from following his diet. Because he's saying A's shouldn't eat red meat. Absolute dangerous. That man was dangerous for certain people. So, fiction. You have a question?
Yeah. Sometimes when I urinate, it doesn't feel like it's fully emptying, and then I'll have to urinate later, like frequently. It interrupts some of my sexual functioning as well. There's that urge to pee at the same time. So I don't know if it's from an inflamed prostate or what.
No, that's a weak urethra.
Urethra?
Weak urethra.
Okay.
Could be a weak bladder, but if you're having the sensation down in the penile area, then it's urethra. If you're having the tension and pressure up here, it could be your bladder too.
Yeah.
So which is it? Both or one of them?
Not really tension, it's just a feeling like it's not emptying all the way, and then if I'm aroused, if I get aroused, that's or masturbate, I guess. Sometimes I feel like that there's an urge to pee at the same time, and it kind of gets in the way, and I don't know.
Well, you have to understand the body. Your nerves are not fed well.
Yeah.
You could use some high meat, some rotten eggs, rotten eggs to help those nerves. You're too sensitive. When a mammal has sex, they always urinate during sex. The ammonia cleans any high acids or contamination out so that the sperm won't die when the ejaculation finally happens. And those people who say, oh, you can get pregnant in the pre-sperm ejaculation, absolute crap. Because the ammonia in the urine destroys the sperm. So it is impossible to get pregnant until you ejaculate. And a lot of guys will say, oh, I didn't come in you, that first spurt did it. That first spurt was the biggest one,
Well, I've heard, though, that if you go twice in a row without urinating in between, there could be semen left inside the urethra.
Well, it depends how long between. I mean, if you're having sex for a while, you're going to be peeing a little bit constantly. It's going to be draining. That fluid, that's what it is. It's urine with some mucus. Urine and mucus to clean. Not sperm. I've looked at probably 92 samples, and it's always mucus and urine. Never sperm. But because it's mucousy, they think it's sperm. And I didn't see one sperm cell in. If somebody's already ejaculated, they may have some of that in. And of course, then in that fluid, where you have the ammonia, the urine, and the mucus, you may have some sperm in it because you've already ejaculated. He's already ejaculated, not you. Already ejaculated, and it's in the urinary tract. But with the urine involved, those sperm are dead. They will not swim. The whole point of ammonia in the body is to harness toxins. The kidney forms most of the ammonia in the body, and that's to keep the red and white blood cells from entering the kidney. If you urinated red and white blood cells every time you had to urinate, you'd be anemic all the time. So that ammonia is what the kidney produces to keep the red and white blood cells from entering the kidney. You understand the body, it is so freaking simple, so easy, and you don't get caught up in the crap that the medical profession instills into you with fear and confusion and nonsense. And I go all over that in my DVD, the workshop DVD. Those who don't have it should get it. You'll learn how the body works and why this diet works, why combinations work, how combinations. Pardon? Oh, you have some? Okay. You have a question?
Yes. I have what's been diagnosed as a torn tendon in the ankle, right here. Okay. So they of course want to do surgery. What I want to do is rebuild it. So I've had this on and off for 3 years. It's been spray. It's been this. It's been that. I used the meat for 6 months. I did something else, some other combination of stuff. I smacked all kinds of stuff on there. And then somebody finally said, I probably should immobilize when I do this, but then the stem cells I've been putting on recently, just the bone marrow with some coconut cream. So I just wonder
You have to understand that if your tendon is not attaching, you've got some metals, or some other chemical, formaldehyde, or something where it won't join. Just like an ulcer. Ulcers don't heal as long as they're contaminated.
Okay.
Once the contamination is gone, then the cells can fuse together.
Okay.
But as long as there's contamination there, you can't mend properly.
Okay,
So you put clay on that area, damp clay with oil, olive oil in it or coconut oil, so it doesn't dry. You do not want it to dry on the skin because you'll damage the skin. You want to pull it out through the skin.
Right.
So the clay cannot dry.
Okay.
It has to stay moist.
Okay.
So we're putting oil in it, like coconut oil is best.
Okay.
Olive oil is second best.
Okay. And just when I'm sleeping, or are you talking about
Anytime, all day long. You can leave
so
it
just
on.
wrap it, and you used to talk about wrapping the meat in the cellophane. Like I said, I did that for quite a
Not
long time.
cellophane. You never want to use cellophane.
No, not right on it, but you put the gauze.
Not even cellophane. Ever use cellophane.
Oh, you said
No, I said you take a plastic vegetable bag or a fruit bag and you cut it into a shape. Never use cellophane.
Why?
Outgasses forever. It is one of the most toxic plastics there is. They also put this petroleum powder on it so that it doesn't stick together. Once that's off, that'll stick there and you can't get it apart. But that powder gets into your foods.
I don't use it for the food, but you're saying don't even use it.
Don't even use it on your body. It's contaminated. Yeah. You just take a plastic bag and you cut.
Why don't you have it around the cloth?
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying.
Still, it's going to powder around and get into the food.
That's what I remember.
And it's going to outcast.
Okay.
It's going to outcast.
Let's back up a second here. Okay, so you just take the plastic bag that they use for the food are okay.
We have one here.
Yeah.
Here's a good one. Here's a gray one. Cut a little square of this, circle whatever you want.
That's
Okay.
cellophane.
Cut this up.
That's cellophane? Yeah.
No, this isn't cellophane.
What is that?
No, this was a plastic bag that somebody broke open and tore open.
All right. Okay. So then let's back up. So what you're saying is
Watch. What would happen if that were cellophane? It would be all stuck together. This isn't stuck together.
Okay, live and learn.
Yeah.
Okay,
So what I would do is I would take the clay and mix it with a tiny bit of water, but mostly coconut oil or olive oil. Mix it together into a paste.
Okay, paste.
Not a very wet paste that's runny, but a firm paste.
Okay.
And then pack that on there. Put it inside, let's say, or put a sock over it, a cotton sock or a piece of cloth where that's also damp. Then you put the plastic over that, keep the moisture in, and then you wrap an ace bandage around that.
Now, I know you're not a clairvoyant, but you have a projection as to how I will know, or when I know, or do I need to immobilize it in any way, or that won't matter?
No.
Because you're
If you keep mobile, you're going to clean it out faster.
That's what I thought, but
You'll have blood flow through faster, nutrients flow through faster.
okay.
If you're sedentary,
No, I'm not.
it's going to be very slow.
Okay, so then
People are sick, always best to keep mobile.
Yeah, I mean that's even my mother used to say, sweat it out. She always said.
Yeah. Don't stop.
Go to your dance class when you feel like crap. She said would say. Anyway.
You go to sleep with hot water bottles and take a hot bath.
Yeah. Okay. And so the hot water bottle on it too.
Yes, hot water bottle. Yeah, and then you've got that sitting on the same side.
Yes.
Where you've got the tear, and then you wrap a towel around to tent that heat in.
Oh, okay. And then, so what about, I've been thinking that the stem cells would help. I mean, eating them and putting them on would help.
You're not going to mend and heal if you've got metals and toxicity in that.
So don't even bother with it. I mean, I'm still eating
Not
stem
until
cells.
you know it's clean.
How will I know that?
Okay, like when I had that motorcycle accident and this tendon went here and this tendon went there,
Yeah.
and they wanted to reconnect, they wanted to get in there and clean out all that bone and everything.
Right.
And I said, no.
Oh, right.
It took 2 years. It only took 12 days for them to grow back and mend. But I had so much contamination from just general toxicity in my body. I felt they were weak in their connections. And it took 2.5 years. But I didn't put the clay on it. If I had done it diligently, it probably would have been about 2.5, 3 months of doing that every day, putting it on once.
Okay, so obviously the hot water bottle at night, and then just the clay without the hot water bottle, obviously during the day in the ace bench.
Yeah.
But I don't need ace bench at night, right?
No, we're just going to keep it together.
No, okay.
But you want to put it on loosely. You don't want to put it on
you
tightly.
want circulation.
Because you have to have circulation.
Yeah, you want circulation. Okay. And what about ingestion for that? Should I eat anything special?
Pineapple is good. And if you've got heavy metals in that area, if I've looked at your ankle area and seeing heavy metals fogged over with lymphatic congestion, I won't be able to see what's down there.
Okay.
But, you could eat blueberries, if it's iron or iodine in that area preventing, then you use raspberries.
Okay.
Use vinegar to help remove the toxicity from that area. Okay. Then, once you feel strong in that area, then you put the bone marrow.
And is it okay to use the old bone marrow, or do you have to use what's the newer is better?
Old bone marrow, it's just stinky, but it's good.
Fine, okay.
Pre-digested, you're going to absorb it into your skin faster.
Okay.
You also scrape the bone marrow too, because it's in plastic, right? You want to scrape the bone marrow once you get it.
I always scrape everything that's in plastic. So I take the bone marrow and I scrape the very top off.
Thank you.
Just a thin layer of it.
Thanks.
Okay. Jim, do you have a question?
Yeah. When I first came to see you like 10 years ago, one of my many complaints was long-term constipation. And in my regimen, I took notes and whatever. Theoretically, there was going to be a cup of olive oil in there. But I didn't do it right away because I'm not going to drink olive oil and I didn't know how to go about it. But eventually, somebody showed me a recipe for chicken ceviche where after you pour off the lemon juice, you got the meat white. Then you put it in some olive oil and some onion and a little bit of cucumbers, what they said, to make it a little bit liquid. And I loved it. It tasted good. I've had it for years. But then I had like sort of a misunderstanding, I guess, with some vinegar and oil salad dressing, and I drank it. And I detoxed like a neon light. And then at some point, you saw that I was thinner, and you said, cut out the olive oil. So I quit doing the olive oil, making the chicken. Then that was to help me sleep more, because you said I was detoxing too much at night. So I want to add the olive oil back into the chicken thing, but I don't want to.
You've been on the diet too long to be eating a lot of olive oil. What you need to do is do the suppository.
What? The what?
The suppository. And the last page, the 9th page of the product list tells you how to do the suppository and what it is. It's 3 tablespoons each of coconut cream, dairy cream, and butter with a 1/4 teaspoon of honey. Put that in a 4-ounce jelly jar. You shake it, put it in a bowl of hot water, not hot enough to burn the ham after leaving it for 6 seconds, but to make it uncomfortable. Leave that in for about 4 or 5 minutes. Take it out, take a bulb syringe, inject that in the bulb syringe, get on all fours, bark like a dog, and you inject it in as far up into your sigmoid colon as possible. The reason you have chronic constipation like that is because, like I said earlier, the body's absorbing all of the fat in the small intestines. So it's going to the organs and not the brain and the nervous system. So there's very little fat that gets into the bowel. So you've got to feed some fresh fat to the bowel. That'll correct that. You only have to do it maybe once every 3 to 7 days. Then the bowel bacteria is deficient again in fat. So then you implant another remedy for that. Some people that have a terrible condition with that, when they start on this diet, I have them do it every day. Every day. It's much better than using the olive oil. Because the olive oil is mainly detoxification. The butter and the cream is mainly for healing and stabilizing tissue. The coconut cream is a milder detoxifier than the oil. So that is the way. And you'll see your mind works better. Everything works so much better because now the bowel, which digests the fat for the brain and nervous system, gets fresh fat that it never gets. Pure, fresh fat. Now going to the brain and nervous system. This one.
What was the proportions on that?
3 tablespoons each.
Can you use fermented coconut cream?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And you hold it in. You go to sleep. You do this right before bed, and you hold it in. You don't want to move it. You don't want to pass it out. It's there to feed your bacteria in your colon.
Where do you get the syringe?
On my product list, there's also a place to get the syringe. No, you can't. They stopped carrying them. Only thing you can find mainly is the baby ear syringes, which are only 2 ounces. And that's like putting 2 ounces in, putting 2 ounces. It's a pain in the ass.
What about a turkey baster?
Pardon?
What about a turkey baster?
If you can get that big thing up your butt, hey, do that. But you're going to be shoving a lot of air up there. But,
What was it called? I wanted to find out now. Somebody's got a dislocated hip or something. Can you do the same sort of thing you're telling her about the tendons, or what do you do for it?
dislocated hip, they need an adjustment.
Okay.
Or they need to do the spinal twist, yoga spinal twist.
Okay. My dog has a dislocated hip.
Okay.
You know, they want to like put her under and then put her around, but just when they were moving her around, it went back in. It seems to kind of be going in or out.
That's
so
all, yeah.
What's going to be the
Well, that's some kind of injection that you got.
That's loose ligaments. You want to tighten those ligaments.
Well, she got hurt.
I know, but
Yeah, but
why it
still,
goes in and out.
it would heal unless there's some kind of toxin there.
So it would be the same type of thing you were talking about.
Yeah, well, dogs and cats do not perspire through their skin. They only perspire through the nose, eyes, ears, mouth, and rectum, and penis or urethra. So those are the only places where they perspire. So it's not going to work to put clay on there unless it's already being built into the skin.
Why don't you put it over their anus and it's so close to the joint?
Better just to feed them cheese. Lots of cheese and butter. All right, do you have a question?
Sure. What would be a normal body temperature? Like if you take your temperature early in the morning and it's 96.5, is that too low? And if so, how do you get it up?
All depends upon the person.
That's what I thought.
It varies per
So
person.
that could be normal to someone.
Yeah.
Because they say, oh, it has to be 98.6,
6.
but it has to be, even under your arm, it has to be 97.8. And God,
All depends upon
under
the
your arm, it's much even lower.
All depends upon the person.
Okay, so there's no guidelines for that.
The guidelines are always to trap you into thinking your body's screwing up.
Yeah.
The only thing that screws up is our minds eating crap food that contaminates the body.
Yeah, that's good to know.
The body's always doing the best it can, and
It
let
is.
me tell you, it's genius.
Genius, that's true.
Especially if we take care of it.
Yeah.
I think the way we abuse it, it's always
And the
working
guidelines
to
on
get
blood
better.
sugar and stuff like that. I mean, they sell drugs by lowering those
Yeah.
blood pressure, blood sugar. I mean,
And what happens if you take if you take high blood pressure medicines to lower high blood pressure? When you've got high blood pressure because you've got congested arteries, or you're fat and you've got pressure on your arteries,
or you better have
high
having
blood
anxiety day, and they give you the blood pressure medication, and then it goes to normal, then it goes way below normal.
And then you get depressed.
Yeah, I haven't done that, but I know,
They're crazy.
The blood pressure goes up and down all the time.
All the time.
I think blood sugar, they've lowered it too
Fluctuate,
much.
cholesterol, all of them should fluctuate.
Right.
But everything should be high.
We should be high.
Everything should be high.
Everything should be high except for hormones. Hormones should be low.
So when they take the cholesterol, adrenaline especially, right?
Unless you want to be a crazy person.
Yeah.
So when they take the cholesterol test first thing in the morning, before you eat, or on 12 hours of fasting.
That's not a true test.
Right.
Your blood's eating itself.
But what I'm asking is, when they give you those numbers, how high or low are they? Do you know what I mean? I mean, how much should we correct for whatever they say?
Don't even do them. They're senseless.
For everything? Not just cholesterol?
Any of their tests are really based to scare you. They're not true. Like, let's say, the cancer treatment test, okay? 60 years ago, if you had 500 cancer cells per million cells, that was treatable cancer.
Treatable.
60 years ago, they changed it to 50 cancer cells per million. Why did they do that? A lot more money in treating cancer. So they went from 500 to 50. Oh, you've got 50 cancer cells per million? Oh, you're treatable. Oh, you're going to die.
Start the chemo.
So if we
Chemo,
want to
radiation,
test,
yeah.
they tell us to fast for 24 hours, but we eat, and then we get the result, and then that's more like the real results. I mean, that would be the way to take a test,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
To just lie and say we fasted, and just go in there and get the test.
Right.
Well, they're just going to be thrown off from what they...
No, the numbers are the numbers. The numbers are the
Well,
numbers.
he's saying that the numbers don't matter at all.
No, he's saying
They
numbers
will
don't
be
matter
different.
if we
Like
fasted.
the last time I had a blood test was at Washington University in St. Louis. They were checking all of my blood work
It's
and
just the
everything.
blood they're checking.
I did not fast.
Yeah.
I drank milk and probably 2 hours before I went in there for glucose tolerance test. And my sugar level, when they took it the first time after drinking, they give you sugar. I said, let me take honey. No, ours based on the sugar. Let me tell you, I was shaking from that little thing of sugar. I mean, I was shaking. I was trembling. Raised my blood pressure, my heartbeat, everything. Because that's so toxic. So it was about 191, I think. And within, 3 hours, it was down to 104. And then in the next 30 minutes, it went down to 92. And I was a diabetic, and they say, God, that's a great pancreas. You get down to 92. Usually it stops at 104. And I was a diabetic, type 1, never curable. Crazy people. Do you have a question?
Well, I mean,
I'm going to go this way.
You're going to go this way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that okay if I go that way?
Well, I asked you, I have a lot of questions, but I asked you about exercise before. So
okay, exercise.
Would you?
That's mine.
That's your, yeah, I know. You don't exercise, right?
Yeah, I don't exercise. I don't have activity rings in my eyes. Activity rings indicate how much hormone you produce for physical activity every day, almost every day. I have zero, so I dance around on my computer all day, 20 hours a day, talk on the phone, for maybe 2 hours a day, and when I'm seeing patients, I'll talk for more, maybe 5-6 hours. That's my exercise, and carry groceries once a week. That's my exercise. But other people have to exercise. Only way you can determine how much exercise you need is if you have anxiety.
If you have what?
Anxiety. If you have anxiety, you need to exercise. You have hormones for physical activity that are not being spent. So you have to exercise. People who have 6 activity rings need 6 hours of activity a day.
How do you find activity rings?
In the irises. So, I had one young girl who had 14 activity rings.
So 14 hours a day.
14. She was 12 years old. The parents brought her to me. She was on reading. I photographed her eyes. She sat behind. The parents sat here, so I didn't even see the little girl. And I'm adjusting her eyes, except to look at her eyes and make sure I color corrected properly. And then she just sat back there, and I talked with the parents. When I do the activity rings, usually the very last thing. And the most I had seen before that was 11 activity rings, and those for professional athletes who live exercising, or people who are construction workers. You know, they're heavy duty in activity and strength and endurance. A marathon runner. She had 14, and I said, okay, she has 14 activity rings. I've never seen this before. Most I've seen is 11. You can't put her in a regular school. You have to put her in a sports school or some kind of activity school, singing and dancing school, some art school, or some athletic school. If you put her in a regular school, she's not going to be able to focus or concentrate unless she's exercising 10 minutes every hour. And heavy 10 minutes every hour. And he said, that's why we brought her here. And I said, that's it. I said, you have to put her in a special school. She's a special girl. You have to find some sport that she likes. And I said, basketball, tennis, you know, those are the best. You know, volleyball, but basketball is the hardest and the biggest grind. And she says, I hate basketball.
Ballet.
And she didn't like that either. She's really tomboy. She had so much adrenaline and testosterone along with her estrogen. She was a toughie. But when I came to that point, I went back to get her acknowledgement, and she's sitting there ringing the chair. She couldn't sit still, ringing the back of the chair like this. Couldn't stop it. Her parents think she's crazy. I said, no, it's just activity hormones. She has to exercise. She says, I love baseball. I said, I hope you're the pitcher. She says, yes. There, it solves it right there. She found a sport that she can do, but she has to go in a sports school where she can exercise 10 minutes a day. I mean an hour. If she doesn't exercise 10 minutes an hour, she's not going to have focus, mental focus. The body will take over. The musculature and the glands will take over.
Does that lessen with time, or her whole life she has to?
That's a lifetime thing. She's going to have to be involved in as a coach, you know, that involves and works with the people, or she's a massage therapist if she doesn't stay into her sport. She's going to have to do something physical, very physical. Pardon? Yeah, there you go. Aerobic classes, yeah. Yeah.
So you
Bikram yoga, something like that.
You have 0 activity rings? Is that what you're saying?
None, except in the brain.
Is that like standard, or what's the average?
Average is 3 to 5.
So the average person should be exercising 3 to 5 hours a day?
No, not exercising. Activity.
Activity. Gotcha.
That means make your food, make your bed, take a shower, brush your teeth, keep the body moving.
Okay, so you were talking about sweat before, like how important it was to sweat all the time? Remember
I talked about the plastic fats in the body? I don't care how much you exercise, you're not going to get over 101.2 for exercise.
Okay.
That's the hottest. You need to get up to 102 to 105, 106, 105, 106, 108, 110 to melt those things. So you can perspire all day, but you're not going to eliminate those toxins that are most important to get rid of. Those plastic fats.
Well, weren't you saying that was the reason that you should make your house really hot, was to sweat them out?
Yeah, but that's to make the house even hotter. That's to keep your body hot. And when you go to bed, take 7 hot water bottles with you. Put 3 beach towels underneath you. Put 1 hot water bottle here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and here, 1 here, and 1 at one side of the head. And sweat.
Didn't you say something
But your body's going to get that hot.
What about a steam room or a sauna?
Too hot.
Too hot.
You're talking about a minimum of 132 degrees.
What if you make it 110 or 115 or something?
You can't do that. Unless you have an infrared sauna, and then you've got 215 milligauss. Enough for you.
What about just going to the valley?
Then you've got a lot of pollution.
Not stuff around your head.
Pardon?
You said in some book or a newsletter somewhere not to put hot things around your head.
I didn't say that.
No?
No. I said you put them at your head. Got a headache? Put it up here. Or wherever that headache is. And you need your major lymph glands are your neck, your underarms and breasts, and your crotch area and your thighs.
So I've been taught that fever over 105 could cause damage to your brain.
That's only if you're already brain dead. No, I've had even infants go up to 106.7 degrees and never cause brain damage. What happens is, if you have a high fever in the hospital and they're injecting medication into you, that gets into the brain because of the fever, and it causes brain damage. The temperature doesn't cause brain damage, but they're going to blame it on anything but not themselves. But it's the chemicals, the medications that do the brain damage. The heat just carries it there faster. Pardon?
On the hot water bottles, when I put hot water bottles by my head when I go to sleep, I think that is part of when I wake up after an hour or two, I'm wide awake.
That's good.
Good?
That's fine. Then wait till you get tired again and go to sleep again. I woke at 10 o'clock last night. I worked for a couple hours. I took off last night and watched movies all night long. And all of a sudden at 6:30, starting to get a little sleepy, and it's half an hour before my call-in time. So I can't go to sleep, so I get on my computer and work. I haven't gone back to sleep. I slept 3 hours.
Yeah, well, when I get like you, it'll be another 40 years.
And that's healthy?
Meanwhile, I sleep 8 or 9 hours, and that's okay.
But all at once, you don't wake up.
No, I wake up in the middle and I eat an egg and milk or egg and berries or something.
But let me tell you, when I first met you, you were red and inflamed all around here. Your eyes were red. Everything was inflamed. Your mouth, your teeth, your nose, your whole body was inflamed with poisons. Now look at you. It's been a slow process, but I see the whites of your eyes. Your eyes are not all inflamed and red all around you. You're not squinting all the time like this.
Yeah. Well, I was suffering.
Yeah, you were in very bad shape. And you were skinny.
I don't have that problem.
Do you have a question?
Well, I have a condition that's called Raynaud, which is basically just circulation issue in my hand. I was wondering if there's anything I can do about it.
Hot water bottles.
It's the only thing. Well, I already do that.
Just put them, wrap a towel around the hot water bottle, around your hand and the hot water bottle. Go to sleep like that. If you've got bad circulation in there, it's plastic fats, trans fatty acids, blocking your lymphatic system and your circulation.
Pineapple and stuff too, right?
That can help. I mean, you can rub pineapple over there and then wrap them. But if you put pineapple on more than once a day, you're likely to burn your skin. So it's once a day. Let's say one day you put pineapple on your hands and your wrist, put the hot water bottle on all night long, and then the next night you could use vinegar on your hands. And that'll chelate with some of those toxins, help break them down, but the heat's the main thing to get everything moving.
How do you keep the water hot?
What did you say?
Well, you take it right out of the tap. Fill up your hot water bottle.
Put it under the covers.
How do you keep it hot? Like,
Oh, you keep it hot. Like you take the hot water bottle, you put it in like a flannel pillowcase. You wrap the extra pillowcase material around it. Then so it won't burn you. Then you put your hand on that and then wrap it in a towel. And that'll keep it. And it'll keep for 7 hours.
Under the covers.
You can get
Hot for 7
flannel
hours.
pillowcases from the Vermont Nursery store. They
Yes.
sell flannel pillowcases. And excellent hot water bottles.
Yeah.
$15.
But you can't make them quite as hot if you use their flannel. See, if you put it in a flannel pillowcase, you've got around a whole two thick, so you've got thickness of 4 layers. With theirs, it's only 1 layer. So you can't make it as hot, so it's not going to be hot. It's going to be hot maybe 5 hours.
I don't use anything. I just throw it under the covers.
You burn yourself?
I have.
Yeah. It's not a good idea.
she used to do that until it's better. I mean, it could be time, like years.
No, not necessarily. The limbs, the fingers, and everything expels pretty fast through the hands and feet. So it could take a year. I doubt it would take that long.
Doing it every day?
Yeah. Every night. Do you have a question?
I do. On behalf of a family member who's actually not on a primal diet, but I'd like to get your perspective anyway. He was diagnosed by his loving doctor with late-stage Barrett's. Apparently, he says it was healed because his esophagus is now clear, but it's moved to his stomach. So he is being told to take PPIs, and antacids. He's afraid to go off them, but open-minded. So
he just needs to eat cheese about every 30 minutes just to absorb those poisons.
Just eat cheese. Okay.
He's cleared most of the heavy toxins that were in his esophagus. Now in the stomach lining, he has those to eliminate.
Okay. And for hydrochloric acid, do you think he needs to rebuild some of that, his ability to produce that as well?
Does he have a hydrochloric acid problem when he eats raw milk or raw meat?
I don't know. I'll have to ask him that.
He may not need that. Unless he took so many antacids that he's damaged his stomach lining. Don't know. You'd have to see. But if he has damaged that, then he'd have to eat either beet juice, 2 ounces of beet juice a day, or about a small corn on the cob. Okay. Jeff. Okay. Fred.
Earlier you said if you're sick you should be active. I don't know if I got that right.
I said you should be active if you're in anxiety. Are you in anxiety?
No, it wasn't
that confused me too. You're talking about when somebody had an injury. You're talking about the ankle injury, and you said keep it moving, keep the blood flowing, like move that stuff out of there.
Just don't sit there and baby it.
Right.
Get up and walk, go to the bathroom,
Not to be confused, because this was a question I was going to
I'm not saying exercise with it.
But not to be confused, if you got the flu and you want to sleep and rest, you want to rest.
Okay, because that's my question, because I've had the flu the past couple of weeks, and all I want to do is stay flat on my back, so...
Not entirely good to do.
I'm sorry?
Not entirely good to be sedentary the whole day.
Yeah.
I would say be at least active 2 hours a day.
Okay.
Yeah. You're going to get up and you're going to make your food, you're going to take a shower,
you got to shop.
Bottles.
Yeah, you got to shop, you got to go to the bathroom.
You're going to have your 2 hours a day in.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so that didn't apply, because that kind of shook me. I should be doing more.
Mm-hmm. No, if you're anxiety, you need to do more.
Yeah, I'm never anxious.
Good.
Not anymore. Okay, thanks.
Hi, Aajonus. Yes, I love using the whites of the eggs and the butter to give me better vision, which I'm finding I'm really wanting that right now.
Putting it in the eye, yes.
Putting it right in the eye. The butter, I think, is really effective, as you say. It does give me blurry vision for a couple days, but...
Well, if you do it at night before you go to sleep...
My eyes are red for a couple days after that, and it clears up after a couple days, but it's still kind of cloudy for a couple days.
Are you having milkshakes? That's a sign you're not building enough tears.
Oh, I'm not building enough.
Protect the eye. That means it's like mucus. You have to have milkshakes.
Okay.
Have 1 milkshake a day.
Okay.
That'll help that.
Okay.
And you have to make sure the butter is fresher.
More fresh?
Yeah, so it isn't so acidic.
Because a lot of times I've been leaving my butter out because it's just so
Not
rock
for the
hard.
eyes.
Not for the eyes?
Because that'll cause that acidic bacteria to predigest, and it's very acid. Will irritate the eye.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Especially if you don't have good tears.
Oh.
Solid tears.
Okay. So keep the butter in the refrigerator.
I put that in your eye.
Because it helps mend the cornea. And it improves vision.
Butter?
Butter.
Egg.
Butter and egg. Egg
Yeah,
white and butter.
separate.
Butter works a little bit harder, a little bit better.
How do you get butter in your eye?
You melt it, put a little, bit on it, like this, and melt it, and you tap it like this, and you pull the eyelid down, and you rub it along the bottom of the white, and then you open both, and you roll around like you're a circus master, and get it all moving around. But you do it before you go to sleep, you try to foggy vision. It takes about 30 minutes.
30 minutes what?
To not have foggy vision. To absorb that butter.
Okay.
But egg white, it takes 2 minutes.
So you do that first, then do the butter.
I just do one or the other. Yeah. Do 1 day butter, 1 day egg white, or you could do egg white in the morning, butter in the evening.
There's those little eye cups now.
Yeah, but that makes such a mess.
I had my glasses. My eyesight was to the point that it was about halfway improving this eye and a third improving this eye, and I had to go down. 3 levels on my prescription.
Isn't that great?
They were aghast. They couldn't believe it. They kept checking it.
And this was from what did you do?
It died. This is after about maybe 4 or 5 years. Yeah. My vision that I wore glasses since I was 12 improved that much. Yeah.
Do you have a question, Lucky?
Thyroid.
Uh-huh.
The thyroid medicine doesn't work. Why do they say you can take thyroid?
Yeah, they say that you could go into a coma if you don't take the conventional medicine.
Well, they'll tell you any kind of scared story. Larry asked the thyroid, why did they tell you you need thyroid? It's like anything to get you to take medication, hormones, whether it's insulin, thyroxine, testosterone, estrogen, no matter what it is, it's a trap. But like I said in my DVD, endocrine glands are for emergency purposes only. Hormones are for emergency purposes only. People who eat cooked food, take chemicals all day long in their food and medication, their bodies are in emergencies all the time. So their body's going to be producing a lot of hormones. If you're on a good diet, your energy comes from fat and a little bit of protein. So as long as you're able to digest your fats properly and your proteins, you're going to have plenty of energy. You don't need hormones to back you up in energy. But the pharmaceutical industry loves pointing to hormones because they say, Steve, you're low in these. Take these. Give us $1,200, $1,800 a month. Medications are expensive. It may cost 10 cents per pill, but they'll charge you $18 to $50, $60 per pill when it comes to hormones. And those hormones are never real. They are synthetic developments of what looks like. There's certain protein structures, certain lipid structures in a hormone. So they'll manufacture something that looks like it, but it will never truly work like a hormone should. It will only partially be used and the rest will be toxic and lead you toward greater disease. Also, that gland will shut down.
Yeah. So are you saying that to feed the thyroid, with hormones, to feed the thyroid with the hormones to have more raw fat?
Yeah, like, you have the thyroid problem, you eat dates and butter together.
I love that.
Yeah, dates, butter, and cheese. Great.
meat too, right?
Yeah, raw meat helps, but I mean, if you want to stimulate the thyroid, and specifically the thyroid, that combination will stimulate the thyroid.
Sorry, I was thinking about the adrenals, because I was reading about this the other day. You said for chronic fatigue syndrome, raw meat, right?
Yeah, raw meat gives you the proteins that you need to form hormones.
Aajonus, and the tomato and the lemon juice keep the thyroid moist.
Uh-huh.
That juice that you make out of raw tomatoes and lemon juice keeps it moist.
Right.
Then you can put a little bit of apple cider vinegar in there. In this country, they're telling everybody that there's an epidemic of thyroid disease, and everybody's on thyroid medication.
Well, look at the billions of dollars they made with that. Yeah, that's what it's all about. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. You know, after you've taken like 2 baths a week with that coconut cream, the milk and the salt and the vinegar, I had sensation across the 2 shoulder blades across my back that was like, it got like tight, and then it got like a burning sensation, and then the following week it was like itchy. What do you think that is?
Well, you had probably iodine or salted coming through your skin heavily, or sulfur. Any one of those 3 moving out, dried the skin, pulled the fats out of your cells as it was passing through, and left your skin dry.
Wow, but it was like tight across the shoulder blades. It felt tight, and then kind of like a burn sensation. And then after that, it was itchy.
Well,
but
just put butter. When you have that again, put butter.
Butter.
Rub butter in.
And also, you know that thing you said about putting butter in your nostrils? What a great idea, because at night, you know, when it's warm, it gets warm and dry, your nostrils get very dry, I mean inside, and when you blow it in the morning, it gets like the capillaries ready to bleed a little bit, so butter that you told me to put up there, back there, excellent. Moist.
Butter's a phenomenal thing.
It's also amazing to remove any kind of eye makeup. It's completely healing and nourishing for the eyes.
Really?
It's outstanding. It's like absolutely
butter?
Oh my God, it feels so healing. It's
you can remove
outstanding.
it with like coconut oil first, and then put the butter on second.
Because
you don't want to absorb the makeup with the butter.
No.
Exactly.
So I suggest that you use coconut oil or olive oil for the first cleanse, and then butter after that for the final cleanse.
What about the coconut cream? Can you melt it a little and use that?
Yes, you can use that.
Excellent.
Yeah. Especially fermented, your makeup will come off faster.
Wow, excellent.
Those people who came late, you owe me $40. Oh, you collected from some people?
They gave it to me.
Diane. Let me ask a question. You have to really, really
Pardon? Oh, yes. You,
I want to make a suggestion before anybody
wait a
goes.
minute, Kathy. Let Roger get his questions.
I have an announcement.
Hold on, everyone, please. Wonderful. It's more cleansing and will work better. You'll even digest it better because it's pre-digested just like yogurt or cheese. Okay, thank you. Nice meeting you.
I have a question about the itchy part. And I came in halfway through that itching.
Which itching? The last?
No, the first part. Itchy. So when you do itch as much as you itch, it's detoxing.
Yeah, it's detox. The toxins are coming through the skin, drawing the fat out of the cells. They dry out, and that causes itching. The skin is drying.
So when you use a brush, which I use vigorously, what's that?
Oh, you're tearing up the body. You're causing more problems, even more dryness.
And
because you cause scabbing. Yes. You just very gently go over it and put butter.
Yeah, that's. But what about? How about the cream? The facial.
Primal facial body care cream. You could use that.
Yeah. Okay. What about the headache?
Right. Somewhat. But that's just because of detox. You just have to keep up with it. Keep up with the cheese and get through that barrier.
So what do you do with the head that itches also? Itchy everywhere. Eye?
Well, it's better to, take some butter very thinly, put it on the fingertips, spread your hair, and rub it into your scalp.
great. Will that help your hair to grow too?
Yeah, it will. Because the strength of a lot of your follicles are dry, and they can't build the hair easily and properly. Okay? All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
The bioidentical hormones are owned for your non-bioidentical, right?
There's no bioidentical. How can it be bioidentical if it's made from plants? It's made from grasses. It isn't bioidentical. It's bioidentical if you're a grass.
Oh, wait, everybody. I had an announcement to make. Could anybody come back a minute? Oh, I know, but there's also something else.
Hey, Roger, what was your question? I didn't get it on tape.
About eating fermented coconut cream.
Oh, okay. Good, thanks.
Even if it's king salmon from Alaska. I use mostly halibut. When I'm in a clean part of Philippines, I eat tuna. Depends on where I am.
Sardines, mackerel.
Yeah.
But are those sardines comes like a pack,
Yeah, well, it's not. Those are cooked. Those are cooked and processed
Now, wait a minute.
with chemicals.
I don't know.
So what am I trying to do to track it down? It's in your body. You've had vaccines, you've had exposure to mercury in many ways. 5 years ago, I took a test. When I had my amalgams out 10 years ago, I took a test and I had alcohol. That's because it wasn't discarding. Only in the time that you're discarding the mercury by building it into the air will it show up. You can take, I've taken hair from my legs, from my stomach, from 7 places on my head. Everyone was different. Depends on where you're throwing it off, on your head or on your body, in the hair. And if it is building into the hair, you're discarding it into your feces, if you're eating the cheese, you're discarding it to the skin with perspiration. My legs, I figured I'd try to track it down, but you think no way to track it down. Except that I can look at viruses and say, here's where you have a lot of mercury and here's where you don't now. You know, like, compare them. No, I never said I had did Marilyn leave already? Oh, she did. I had a lot of metals, not mercury. Mercury is one of the main metals. I mentioned metals. Mercury is one of the main ones. Unless I see a lot of iron and iodine, I will reach out.
If we ask you, this is longevity, David will talk about it. That's the one you had. Okay. And not refrigerate this in a dry area.
I take it out and put it in a jar.
Okay.
I never leave anything in there.
Oh, this has been for 2 days already.
Okay. Take it, put it in a jar.
Do I have to scrape it?
No. Well, you can't scrape it. It's powder.
Yeah. If it's not too late, then...
Put it in glass when you get home.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if anybody wanted some of it now.
I don't know if people want a tapeworm.
Tapeworm. Maybe I want. Good to see you. Yeah. So where do you see people here now?
Pardon?
Where do you see people here for consultation?
Powder there.
Yeah, I don't know. Michael powder.
I see them usually on Thursdays and Fridays.
Okay.
Sometimes Saturdays.
Okay, in your apartment. Where is it now?
Where?
Yeah.
Do you know where Goose is? You know where those lost floors down there?
Yeah.
And up lost floors scattering, so 30 minutes closer.
Okay.
Much closer.
So there isn't anything I can do. You have something about getting out the metal.
The sport formula with the vinegar in it, by adding berries instead of, let's say, tomato, or one of those two ingredients would be dark berry.
Okay, well, I was going back cilantro.
Cilantro for the juice.
Marilyn, you're right here. I'm talking about.
That's good. That will help pull some mercury out.
I have to take it out, but
berries will help chelate with the mercury, so you don't. It doesn't and with the amino acids in the vinegar will, once the cilantro has pulled it out of the body, out of the tissue, that's when it will bind it and keep it from damaging your system.
How many tablespoons to a pound? That's $35.
You're the only person in South Maybe you're not putting it on your And are you putting your head down?
But I'm going to take
scar tissue up there.
Okay. I don't know. But instead of getting it out of
douchebag. Take it where it's long. Women use.
Okay. All right. So, let's do it then. Okay. You want to come with me?
It gets messy. Coming back out. Okay. You need.
All right. I'm going to act lucky if I can
be sure
put this in a glass jar.
Make sure it slides a bit.